Far beyond the known stars, there was a place where maps ended and silence began. Aliens from many worlds spoke of it only in whispers, for they called it the edge of the stars. No one crossed it, and those who tried never returned. Some said it was a graveyard of ships, others said it was a wall of darkness where reality itself broke apart. To most, it was a boundary not to be touched. Yet in secret, fear lived inside every council chamber, for no one truly knew what was out there. The galaxy had grown used to its borders, to the safe paths of trade and war, to the rules of politics and empire. They believed the universe was already known. But that belief shattered the day humanity appeared. They came without warning, without a history inside known space. A single ship drifted into alien sight, battered but alive. Its markings were strange, its technology different, but the beings inside it were stranger still. They called themselves human. When the first message was sent, when the first transmission was decoded, the words were simple and chilling. "We are from beyond the edge." The aliens who heard it froze in silence. No one came from beyond. No one lived out there. That place was forbidden, haunted by fear and stories older than empires. Yet these humans stood alive, breathing, and unbroken. At first, the council thought it was a trick. Perhaps a hidden empire was playing a game, pretending to be something new. But when the humans showed their star maps, when they showed routes that did not exist on any galactic chart, the truth became harder to deny. They had traveled through the unknown and returned. This made no sense. Explorers before had tried and vanished. Whole fleets had gone into that darkness and never been seen again. But these humans had survived. How? Why? No answer came. The council demanded knowledge, demanded secrets, but the humans only smiled, only said, "Where the stars end, humanity begins." The words spread through the galaxy like fire. Civilizations that once thought themselves safe now looked at the edge with fear. What did humanity mean? What lived out there? What had they escaped from? No one had answers. But the silence of the humans, their calm and quiet refusal to explain, only deepened the terror. Rumors spread quickly. Some claimed the humans were not alone, that they carried shadows with them. Others whispered that humans were not a race at all but weapons born in the dark, created by whatever mystery lived beyond the stars. When human ships began to appear more often, when their colonies began to rise on alien borders, the unease grew stronger. They were too fast, too adaptable, too bold. Their eyes carried a knowledge that unsettled even the oldest races. They looked at the galaxy not with wonder but with pity, as if they already knew its dangers. This only made the fear grow. In secret, the council argued late into the nights. Some wanted to ban humanity, to push them back to the edge they came from. Others argued that pushing them away might awaken whatever hunted them. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy trembled. Empires that had stood for ages felt small. Great fleets that once ruled the stars seemed weak. All because of a single truth: the humans came from beyond. On quiet nights, some aliens whispered a question they dared not ask aloud. If humanity had survived the edge, what had they seen in the dark? What had shaped them, hardened them, and made them so unafraid? For now, the answer remained hidden. Humanity did not speak of the things beyond. They only stared into the stars, waiting, as if expecting something to follow them. And that silence was the most terrifying secret of all. The Galactic Council gathered in secret. The chamber was dark, filled with the uneasy voices of leaders from 100 worlds. They spoke in low tones, not because they wished to hide from each other, but because the very subject of their meeting made them afraid. Humanity. The word itself had become a shadow across the galaxy. No one understood where they had come from. No one understood how they had crossed the edge of the stars. And no one understood why they refused to tell their story. Empires that once laughed at rumors now fell silent when the humans appeared. Some called them allies, others called them invaders, but all agreed on one thing: they were dangerous. In the council chamber, the oldest species argued. The tall Vaari, whose fleets once ruled a quarter of the galaxy, demanded that humanity be contained. The cold-blooded Xyrans, whose empire stretched across dead moons, argued that humanity must be studied, every secret taken apart. But the gentle Selner, a species of scholars, warned that pressing too hard could lead to disaster. The humans were survivors of something unknown. Survivors were not to be underestimated. The council leader, a being older than most civilizations, listened in silence. Then he asked a question that cut through the noise. "Do you remember the explorers?" The chamber grew still. Everyone remembered. Long ago, before the galaxy was fully mapped, fleets had gone to the edge. Brave ships had crossed the border of known space, seeking glory, riches, and knowledge. None had returned. Thousands of lives were lost. The council marked the border as forbidden, and over centuries the fear grew into law. And yet, the leader said slowly, humanity returned. The silence that followed was heavy. The council did not want to believe it, but the truth was there. The humans had walked into the graveyard of ships and come back alive. And worse, they had come back stronger. How? Why? No one could explain. Some whispered that the humans had found allies beyond the stars, terrible allies that taught them forbidden things. Others believed they had faced horrors in the dark and stolen their power. Whatever the truth, one fact could not be denied: the humans had changed. They were not like the fragile explorers who vanished long ago. They carried technology unknown to the galaxy. Their ships were built with strange materials, their weapons burned in ways no one had seen before. When asked to explain, the humans only said, "We adapted." To the council, those two words were more frightening than war. Because adaptation meant survival. And survival meant they had faced something worth dying for, yet they had lived. The council debated for days, but no agreement came. Should they welcome humanity? Should they destroy them before it was too late? Should they demand the truth of what lay beyond the edge? Every path carried danger. At last, one ancient counselor stood and spoke words that chilled everyone. "You do not understand," he said. "The humans are not the danger. The danger is what follows them." The chamber fell into chaos. No one wanted to hear it, yet all had thought the same. Humanity had not come running into the galaxy for conquest or trade. They had come because something else drove them out. Something worse. Something that might be coming still. The council ordered silence. News of this meeting must never reach the public. If the galaxy knew, panic would consume entire worlds. Fleets would rebel, colonies would fall. For now, the secret must remain hidden. But secrets have a way of escaping. Already, whispers spread among the stars. Alien captains claimed to see shadows moving near the edge. Traders spoke of strange signals echoing in the dark. And everywhere humans went, they carried with them an aura of quiet watchfulness, as if they were always listening for something behind them. The council feared them, yet they also needed them. For if the shadows were real, if something hunted the humans across the stars, then perhaps only humanity knew how to fight it. That was the cruel paradox. Humanity was both the greatest threat and the only possible shield. And so the council watched them closely, trapped between fear and necessity. The edge of the stars was no longer silent. It had sent something back. Humanity had crossed it. And the universe would never be the same. In the quiet halls of the Great Archive, where records of every star and every world were stored, an alien archivist named Relan worked late into the endless night. His kind, the Selner, were not warriors or rulers but keepers of knowledge, and Relan had spent centuries cataloging forgotten histories. Yet on this night, while searching through ancient data crystals, he found something that made his hearts grow cold. It was a star map, older than any he had seen, its edges burned, its symbols erased in places as if someone wanted it hidden. But what shook him most was not its age, it was what the map showed. Beyond the known galaxy, past the edge of the stars, there were routes. Routes that led to places no ship was meant to travel. Relan stared at it in disbelief. For marked along those paths were warnings written in a language that predated the council itself. The words were simple, desperate. Do not cross. Do not awaken. For centuries, these maps had been buried, locked away by order of leaders who feared panic. They had erased the past to protect the present. Yet somehow, humanity had found their way through those same paths, and they had returned alive. Relan felt his hands tremble. The legends were true. The edge was not just a border of space but a boundary drawn in fear. And now that boundary had been broken. The archivist tried to remain calm, but questions burned inside his mind. Had the humans seen what lay beyond? Did they know why the maps carried warnings? And most of all, what had they brought back with them? He tried to silence these thoughts, but the unease only grew when he remembered the faces of the human envoys he had seen in the council chamber. Their eyes had carried a strange weight, like beings who had looked into something too vast, too terrible, and had lived to tell no one. Relan knew he should seal the maps again, hide them as the others had, but something inside him refused. Knowledge was not meant to be buried. The galaxy deserved to know what haunted its borders. Yet he also understood the danger. If the truth spread, fear would consume every world. Still, he made a copy of the maps and kept them hidden within his chambers, whispering to himself that one day the truth would be needed. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, more rumors spread of humanity's strange abilities. Colonies reported that humans could survive conditions that killed others. Their bodies healed faster, their minds adapted to alien technology with shocking speed. Entire fleets wondered if they had been changed by the edge itself. When Relan compared the ancient star routes with the maps the humans had shown, his fear deepened. They matched. The humans had walked the very same roads the old explorers had, yet they had not vanished. Why? What made them different? Relan searched deeper and found one more note carved into the old records. It was only 3 words long, but it froze his blood. They are coming. Relan did not know who they were, but he understood enough. Humanity had not only survived the forbidden paths, they had escaped something on the other side. The archivist went before the council, trembling as he revealed the maps. Some leaders demanded he destroy them, but others listened in horror. The warnings could not be ignored anymore. If humanity had crossed the edge and lived, then something had changed in the balance of the universe. The chamber filled with argument, but over it all, Relan's voice rose with one quiet truth. Humanity begins where the stars end, but something else may begin there too. His words haunted the council. For centuries they had trusted in silence, in forgetting. Now the silence was breaking. The edge was no longer a myth. It was a door, and someone had already opened it. The first great empire to act against humanity was the Dravari Dominion, a race proud and arrogant, with fleets larger than entire star systems and weapons that had crushed countless enemies. When humans began building colonies near their borders, the Dravari saw it as an insult, a challenge to their power. Their warlords gathered, their admirals prepared, and soon the skies filled with the thunder of warships moving toward human space. To the rest of the galaxy, it seemed inevitable. A small, young species had dared to step into the path of giants. The humans would be erased, their colonies burned, their ships scattered into dust. But what happened next became a story that spread like fire through every world. The Dravari unleashed their first strike, a fleet of 100 warships armed with weapons that had shattered whole civilizations. Yet when their fire burned across human defenses, something unexpected happened. Human ships did not break. They did not flee. Instead, they adapted. The first salvo tore through their shields, but the second was met with resistance, and by the third strike, human systems had already shifted, adjusted, evolved in ways the Dravari could not explain. Weapons that should have destroyed them were bent, redirected, absorbed. Then the humans struck back. Their weapons were strange, their energy beams pulsed in rhythms no one had ever seen, their projectiles moved like living things, weaving past defenses as if guided by unseen hands. Dravari ships fell, not slowly but in sudden waves, as if the humans knew exactly where their weaknesses were. The battle that was supposed to be a glorious victory turned into chaos. The Dominion sent more fleets, desperate to crush this impossible resistance, but the same thing happened again and again. Every time the humans fought, they fought differently, as if they had already learned the enemy's tactics before the battle even began. Admirals screamed in disbelief, soldiers whispered in fear, and soon the word spread: humans could not be predicted. Within weeks, what was meant to be the beginning of humanity's destruction turned into the crumbling of the Dravari's pride. Their fleets pulled back, their leaders fell silent, and no declaration of victory ever came. The war ended without a single treaty signed, without surrender, without peace talks. It ended because the Dominion was too afraid to continue. The galaxy called it the war that never happened. Other empires watched carefully. They had believed the Dravari would crush humanity in days, yet the opposite had occurred. How could a species so new, so small, stand against a power so ancient? Questions filled the air, and with those questions came suspicion. Did the humans carry weapons from beyond the edge? Did they hold knowledge stolen from things older than the galaxy itself? No one had answers, and the humans gave none. When asked, their leaders only said the same chilling words: we adapted. We survived. But survivors of what? That became the question that haunted the galaxy. Whispers spread in the dark corners of trade stations and in the secret halls of governments. If the humans had learned such power, who had taught them? Or what had forced them? Some believed the humans were preparing for a greater war, one not against any empire but against something outside the galaxy itself. Others claimed they had already fought that war and barely escaped, carrying scars in their minds and technology in their hands. For the Council, the victory of humanity over the Dominion was both a relief and a terror. It proved that the humans were not weak, not fragile. But it also proved that they were unlike any species the galaxy had ever seen. Empires rose and fell, but none had ever fought like this. None had ever grown stronger in the middle of battle, changing faster than the enemy could strike. The counselors gathered once more in their secret chamber, their voices sharp with fear. Some argued that the humans must be destroyed before they grew too strong. Others said that to fight them would be madness, for if the Dominion had failed, who else could hope to win? And over it all hung the one question no one dared speak aloud: if humanity could adapt to any enemy, then who were they truly preparing to fight? The war that never happened became the war that warned the galaxy, and from that day on, every star seemed to shine with unease. The Council had grown desperate for answers. The more humanity fought, the more questions rose. They had survived battles no one else could, they had built weapons no one could explain, and worst of all, they carried silence with them, a silence that made every empire uneasy. Rumors swirled across the galaxy that humans were not only hiding secrets but hiding something terrible. Finally, the Council made its move. During a tense border skirmish between human and alien patrols, a single human soldier was captured alive. He was brought to the Council's chamber, bound in restraints forged from the strongest alloys, watched by guards from 6 different species. Yet when he entered, he did not look afraid. His eyes were steady, his breathing calm, as if none of the power before him mattered. The counselors demanded answers. Who were the humans really? How had they crossed the edge of the stars? What had they seen out there in the dark? For a long time, the soldier said nothing. He simply stared, and the silence was heavier than any threat. But then, slowly he spoke. His voice was quiet, yet it carried through the chamber like a storm. We did not steal. We did not conquer. We survived. The counselors leaned forward, demanding more, and the soldier continued. Beyond the edge, we faced things you cannot imagine. Worlds that devour themselves. Skies that burn without fire. Shadows that move where no life should be. We had no choice but to adapt, or we would have perished like all the others who tried. His words shook the chamber, but still the counselors pressed. What hunted them? What forced them to change? The soldier's face darkened. There are enemies in the dark. They do not fight for land or power. They fight because existence itself offends them. We ran, and we survived. But they do not stop. They never stop. The chamber fell silent. Some counselors laughed nervously, calling it a human lie to inspire fear. But others felt the chill of truth in his voice. The soldier leaned forward against his restraints, his eyes burning with quiet rage. You think we came here for conquest? No. We came here for time. Every day we live is another day we prepare. Because one day, what hunts us will find us again. And when it does, you will pray that humanity still stands. With that, he refused to speak further. The council tried to press him, but he closed his mouth and would not answer again. Yet his words were enough. The story spread beyond the chamber, slipping through whispers and shadows until every world heard fragments of it. Some said the humans were fleeing an ancient enemy. Others said they were lying to cover their own dark past. But either way, fear spread like fire. Fleets began to move nervously along the borders, scanning for signals in the void. Traders refused to travel near the edge. Colonies lit their skies with defensive shields, even when no enemy appeared. Humanity, however, remained silent. They did not confirm the story, but they did not deny it either. They simply worked faster, building stronger ships, training harder soldiers, watching the stars with eyes that seemed to see more than anyone else. And that silence, that terrible silence, made the council even more afraid. If what the soldier said was true, then the galaxy was not ready. If it was a lie, then why did the humans keep preparing? Either way, the truth had begun to slip through the cracks. The first secret had been revealed, and it left the galaxy trembling with questions it did not want to ask. It began with a signal, faint and broken, detected by an alien patrol near the edge of the stars. At first, the officers thought it was interference, some echo of dead satellites or old wrecks drifting in the void, but then the signal repeated, sharp and deliberate, pulsing in patterns no one recognized. They reported it to the council, and soon the whispers began. For centuries the edge had been silent, but now it spoke again. Fleets were sent to investigate, but what they found only deepened the fear. Strange shapes moved in the darkness, too far to scan clearly, but large, impossibly large, like shadows gliding between the stars. No known technology matched their size or their speed. The patrols tried to follow, but their systems failed, their sensors went blind, and ships vanished without distress calls. The council panicked. They summoned humanity, demanding answers. The human envoys sat quietly as the recordings played, and for the first time, fear touched their faces. They knew the signal. They knew the shapes. Their silence broke when one of them whispered words that froze the chamber. They have found us. The counselors erupted, demanding explanations, but the humans would only say this: you were never alone in the dark. We tried to warn you. Now it is too late. Panic spread through the galaxy. Empires strengthened their borders, colonies armed their civilians, and fleets gathered in numbers unseen for centuries. But none of it brought comfort, for the enemy in the dark had not yet shown itself. It only lingered, waiting, circling like predators unseen. And humanity watched with grim eyes, preparing without speaking. They began moving their colonies, shifting their fleets, building strange devices whose purpose no alien understood. When asked what they were doing, the humans only said, "We are buying time." That answer only brought more fear. If humans were afraid, then whatever hunted them must be beyond anything the galaxy had ever faced. Rumors spread like storms. Some said the enemy was a machine swarm older than stars. Others claimed they were creatures of pure void, devourers of life and light. A few whispered that they were not enemies at all but something worse, a force that erased entire realities. No one knew the truth, except perhaps the humans, and they would not speak. The galaxy began to fracture under the weight of fear. Some worlds called for alliance with humanity, believing only they could fight what was coming. Others wanted humanity destroyed, fearing they had brought the nightmare into known space. But no matter the arguments, the shadows near the edge grew stronger. Patrols began to vanish in greater numbers, and strange energy pulses rippled through space, warping signals, twisting time itself. The council held emergency meetings, their leaders trembling as they listened to new reports. And through it all, one thought haunted every world: if humanity had fled from the dark, then the dark was coming for all. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy faced something it could not name, something it could not measure, something it could not fight. Humanity stood at the center of it, silent and waiting, the only ones who truly knew what lurked beyond. And as the signals grew louder, as the shadows pressed closer, the universe realized a terrifying truth: the edge of the stars was never a border. It was a warning. And the warning was being fulfilled. The first true sign of their arrival came not as light, but as silence. A colony near the edge stopped sending messages, its signals cut off in a single breath. At first the council thought it was a system failure, a storm in space, but when a rescue fleet arrived they found nothing. Not ruins, not wreckage, not even dust. The colony had been erased, as if it had never existed. Fear rippled through the galaxy, but before the council could respond another signal came, this one from a military fleet guarding the border. Their last words were filled with static and terror. "They are here." Then the signal died. What emerged from the void silenced every world. A colossal shape moved against the stars, so large it seemed to swallow entire constellations. Its hull was blacker than space itself, its edges shifting as though it were alive. Smaller shadows followed, hunters that moved with purpose, darting like predators closing on prey. No one had seen anything like them before. Weapons fired, energy beams cut through the dark, but nothing struck true. The hunters moved in silence, warping light around them, bending physics itself. Entire fleets vanished in minutes. Panic tore across the galaxy as worlds screamed for help. But help did not come. No empire was strong enough to stand against the hunters. Only one force remained silent, and that silence was humanity. While others panicked, humanity began to move. Their fleets rose in unison, their soldiers prepared, their leaders gave orders that sounded more like prophecy than command. When alien envoys begged them for answers, the humans gave only one: "We told you they would follow." The council realized then what humanity had always known. The hunters were the reason no one had survived the edge. They were the reason explorers vanished, the reason star maps carried warnings carved in blood. Humanity had not been explorers. They had been refugees, running from the nightmare that now entered the galaxy. And yet, unlike others, they did not run this time. Human fleets turned toward the darkness, their ships forming walls across the stars. They did not speak of victory, only of resistance. "Hold the line," their captains said. "Buy time." The first great battle began in silence. Hunters struck with weapons that were not weapons, tearing ships apart without touch, folding space around them like paper. Yet the humans adapted. Shields shifted, weapons recalibrated, tactics changed in moments. Where other fleets crumbled, the humans endured. Still, they bled. Thousands of human lives were lost, ships torn apart in fire and silence. But unlike the colonies that had vanished without a trace, humanity fought back. For every ship destroyed, a hunter burned. For every fleet crushed, another rose in its place. Across the galaxy, alien worlds watched in shock. For the first time, they saw the truth of humanity. They were not conquerors. They were not invaders. They were survivors, warriors forged by nightmares no one else could endure. The hunters were stronger, older, beyond reason, but humanity did not yield. Even as the void swallowed their ships, they fought with a fury that made the oldest empires tremble. And then, as the hunters pressed deeper, a human commander sent a final transmission across the stars. His voice was steady, even as his ship broke apart around him. "We are humanity. We begin where the stars end. And if you want to live, you will stand with us, or you will fall alone." His words spread across every world, carried by desperate signals, replayed in the darkest hours of fear. And in that moment, something shifted. The galaxy, divided for centuries, began to unite. Not out of choice, not out of trust, but out of survival. For the hunters had come, and there was no escape. Humanity had warned them. Humanity had prepared. Now humanity would lead. The galaxy had never seen unity, not truly. For countless ages the empires fought over borders, over trade, over pride, but now all those divisions seemed small. The hunters had come, and nothing else mattered. Worlds that once hated each other sent fleets side by side. Enemies of centuries shared weapons, fuel, and soldiers. Yet even in this fragile alliance, one truth was clear: without humanity there was no hope. The hunters tore through defenses with ease, their colossal forms drifting like shadows made of nightmare, their weapons bending the laws of reality itself. But wherever they struck, humanity stood at the front. Their ships burned brighter, their soldiers fought harder, their leaders gave orders with voices that carried no fear. Aliens who once doubted them now looked at them with awe and terror, for the humans fought as if they had been waiting for this very war. And in truth, they had. Humanity had lived with the shadow of the hunters for generations. They had fled once, survived in the void, adapted to horrors that should have destroyed them. Now they faced the enemy not as prey but as a shield. Battle after battle raged across the stars. Human fleets clashed with hunter swarms, their ships twisting, changing, evolving mid-fight in ways no alien could understand. Where one tactic failed, another was born within moments. Where one weapon broke, a new design was unleashed. The hunters were relentless, but the humans were unyielding. Slowly, painfully, they began to hold the line. For the first time since the hunters crossed the edge, the galaxy felt a spark of hope. And then came the revelation. In a secret meeting, human leaders stood before the council and revealed the truth they had hidden. They were not just fighting for survival. They were fighting because they were the only ones who could. The hunters did not see species, borders, or worlds. They saw only life, and they would erase it all. Humanity had learned this long ago, and they had prepared for this very moment. Where the stars end, the human commander said, his voice echoing through the chamber, humanity begins. We are not conquerors. We are not refugees. We are the wall between you and the dark. His words were heavy, but no one laughed, no one doubted. They had seen the proof with their own eyes. The oldest races, once proud and arrogant, lowered their heads. For the first time in history, they accepted humanity not as outsiders but as leaders. And so the war became something greater. Human strategies guided fleets of hundreds of species. Human engineers reshaped alien weapons into tools strong enough to harm the hunters. Human soldiers stood on the front lines, teaching others how to adapt, how to fight, how to survive. The galaxy had many armies, but humanity gave it something it had never known before: hope. Still, the war was far from over. The hunters pushed deeper, their endless forms blotting out stars, their silence louder than any scream. Entire systems fell, but unlike before, they did not fall alone. Humanity made sure of it. Every battle, every retreat, every sacrifice was done to protect others, to give the galaxy time to stand together. And slowly, the galaxy began to understand the terrible truth. Humanity was not feared because they were dangerous. Humanity was feared because they were necessary. They carried the burden no one else could. They bore scars of nightmares no one else survived. They were the ones who stood when all others broke. As the hunters loomed larger, as the war stretched across the stars, one truth echoed through every world: without humanity, there would be no tomorrow. And so, when the final call to arms spread across the galaxy, millions of voices rose as one, repeating the words that had haunted them since the beginning. Where the stars end, humanity begins. It was no longer a secret. It was a promise. A promise that the galaxy would not die in silence. A promise that humanity would lead them through the darkness. A promise that even against the greatest enemy the universe had ever known, life would not bow. And with that promise, the war for existence truly began.